During dinner, my son's shocking claim about his mother-in-law revealed a transformative truth. The aroma of roasted chicken lingered warmly in the air, a comforting backdrop to the usual laughter and easy conversation that filled the Johnson home on Sunday nights. Jake, now a college student, animatedly shared stories of campus life, while Sarah smiled proudly, her heart swelling with love for her only son. This weekly ritual was their sacred time. It was a sanctuary of simple pleasures, where the world outside faded and only the bond between mother and son truly mattered. Yet, just as Jake leaned forward, a glint of seriousness in his eyes, the atmosphere shifted. "Mom, I have to tell you something about Emily's mom," he said, his voice steady but low. "I think Carol's been siphoning funds from her company to support a former colleague because of some shady downsizings." The words hung in the air like a thick fog, obliterating the laughter. Sarah's heart raced, each beat echoing the weight of his accusation. A rush of uncertainty collided within her, loyalty to Jake and the respect she had for Carol, who treated them like family. How could this be? She often admired Carol's corporate prowess and ambition. "Jake, are you sure?" she managed, her mind spinning as she tried to make sense of this revelation. As he pushed his plate away, Jake's brow furrowed with growing concern. "I overheard some corporate talk at their house. It felt wrong." The tension felt like a tightening vice, squeezing at her chest. Sarah could barely breathe. The woman who had welcomed them with open arms was suddenly cast in a morally dubious light. She felt torn. Defending her son's integrity was paramount, but confronting Carol seemed unfathomable. Before she could articulate her thoughts, Jake pressed further. "What if she's hurting people, Mom? We can't just let that go." The plea in his voice stirred a deep unease within her. Could she, a woman who'd built her career on nurturing honesty in her classroom, just stand by as a potential injustice unfolded? "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. I felt paralyzed. Her thoughts swirled chaotically. What would speaking up mean for her family? Would she risk losing the connection they'd finally forged with Emily's family? The fear of damnation mingled with a fierce desire for justice, creating a storm in her heart, leaving her trembling on the edge of a precipice.
"Mom, I need you to stand with me." Jake's voice broke through her confusion. His expression was a mix of hope and desperation, eyes pleading for a call to action that she was terrified to answer. The stakes had escalated dramatically. It was no longer just about loyalty or family, but the very core of right versus wrong. As Jake's words sank in, a deep seed of determination began to grow, intertwining with doubts that threatened to engulf her. With each heartbeat, the need for integrity battled against the instinct for familial preservation. Could she challenge the actions of someone her son had grown to cherish without fracturing the fragile bonds they'd established? Just when Sarah thought clarity was within reach, Jake asked a question that sent shivers racing down her spine. Can our family narrative really handle the truth if it means going against someone we love? Her breath caught in her throat, the gravity of it all crashing down as she faced the chaotic crossroads ahead. The aftermath of that fateful dinner lingered in Sarah's mind like a haunting melody, drawing her thoughts into a whirlpool of confusion. Each moment since had felt like an unraveling thread, pulling at her sense of loyalty and motherhood. In the weeks that followed, the walls of her home felt claustrophobic, the air thick with unspoken words. She often found herself standing by the window, watching the world flow past, feeling utterly disconnected from the life she had carefully constructed. One evening, as twilight cast shadows across the living room, Sarah approached her desk, where her notebook lay open, filled with jotted notes on her students' progress. Flipping through the pages, she stumbled upon a section where she'd written reminders to herself about integrity, perseverance, and moral courage. Reading those words struck a chord. They mirrored her internal struggle, a professional commitment she could no longer ignore. She was faced with a decision not just for Jake, but also for herself. The truth had a voice, and it was growing louder. Determination crystallized into a plan. Whether or not to confront Carol was no longer the question. The critical choice hinged around how to approach it. Sarah's instinct was to protect her son while honoring her professional values. There had to be a way to communicate the truth without igniting the finality of conflict. One evening, Sarah decided to invite Carol over for tea. It felt like a calculated risk, the kind of boldness she typically reserved for classroom debates and student-led discussions. She rehearsed her words as she paced the kitchen, envisioning various scenarios of how the conversation might unfold. Would Carol bristle, or would she become defensive? Would revealing her son's concerns disrupt the familial bonds that had started to blossom? When the doorbell rang, it was as if the world stopped. Sarah's heart raced, but she steadied herself.
She opened the door, and Carol stood there, radiant as ever, a smile dancing on her lips, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. They exchanged pleasantries and settled into the living room, the atmosphere tinged with warmth, yet shadowed by an underlying tension. As they sipped their tea, Sarah felt the walls of her carefully constructed facade begin to crack. She had to seize the moment. "Carol," she began, her voice steadier than she felt, "I wanted to talk about something important. It's about Jake's perspective on some things he overheard. It's troubling." The words tumbled out before she could second-guess herself. Carol's demeanor shifted instantly, the smile melting into a mask of concern. "What do you mean? Jake said something?" Sarah nodded, trying to keep her voice calm. "He mentioned some financial irregularities he thought he caught wind of, involving your company. I trust him, and I know how deeply he cares for the people in his life." The stunned silence that followed felt like an eternity. Sarah watched Carol closely, noting how her composure began to fracture as confusion morphed into something darker. There was no denying the gravity of the moment. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest amidst the tension. "What exactly did Jake say?" Carol finally responded, her voice clipped. That was the moment of truth for Sarah, the defining choice that would shape not just her future, but her son's as well. Taking a deep breath, she realized she was not merely defending Jake. She was standing firm in her values and integrity, ready to face the consequences of a revelation that could alter everything. And yet, as a flicker of doubt gnawed at her resolve, she wondered, was she prepared for whatever lay ahead? As the silence deepened, the stakes grew higher, and her next words could very well change the landscape of their intertwined lives forever. The silence stretched, both women trapped in the gravity of the moment. Sarah felt the weight of her choice pressing down, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension. Carol's expression was an unreadable mask, but Sarah sensed the crack beneath the surface, a fissure of fear or uncertainty, perhaps. "It's important for me to understand the full picture, Sarah," Carol finally said, her voice professional but edged with vulnerability. Was Jake sure about what he heard? Sarah hesitated, a flicker of doubt pulsing through her veins. Was she placing her son in the line of fire? The ethical predicament she faced looms large. Any misstep could lead to a chasm between families. "He mentioned specifics," she began slowly. "He's perceptive, and I trust his instincts." Carol's eyes darkened for a moment, as if considering her next move. "But why bring this to me? If there's an issue, shouldn't you report it?" The question resonated deeply. Sarah felt the truth behind it. Was she being a confirmed mother or an unwitting participant in a deeper conflict? "Because I believe that transparency is at the heart of trust. Jake deserves honesty from us, as do you." The candor of her own words struck Sarah with surprising force. Here, in this fragile moment, she realized she was trading the comfort of ignorance for the clarity of truth. But fear gripped her. Did that sense of righteousness come from a place of solidarity or betrayal? Carol visibly recoiled, the warmth that had filled the room now disappearing like vapor. "You're implying I could be involved in something illegal?" Her voice wavered, caught between defensiveness and something more fragile. "No," Sarah rushed to clarify. "I'm saying that we should protect the integrity of our families. If there's nothing wrong, we have nothing to fear, right?" Carol looked away, breaking eye contact. The vulnerability pulsed stronger now, and Sarah noted the quiver in her friend's lips. Should she press further or retreat? As moments passed, the momentum began to shift in Sarah's mind. The confrontation wasn't just about Jake. It was about reclaiming her voice and asserting her role as a mother willing to fight for what was right. This wasn't merely a professional commitment. It was an awakening. Each heartbeat intensified her resolve as she pondered the path forward. "Sarah," Carol finally said in a whisper, "the company's reputation is at stake. If Jake's accusations are unfounded, it could ruin everything." Her tone dropped, edging into desperation. "And what about our families?" That realization struck Sarah with iron clarity. Protecting the community she had fostered as both a mother and educator was paramount, yet she couldn't ignore her growing awareness of the governance of ethics within both her personal and professional spheres. Did being submissive in the face of uncertainty validate her own complicity in whatever was at play? As the weight of decision lay heavy, Sarah glimpsed the contours of her own vulnerability. The boundaries of loyalty and honesty danced dangerously close. "I won't back down, Carol. If there's truth here, we must face it, together." The moment hung suspended.
courage igniting within Sarah even as doubt continued to murmur. Each decision forward felt like threading a needle through her own convictions. Could she really take the reins of this journey and protect her family while risking everything she cherished? With the air thickening with tension, Sarah reached out to bridge the gap, grasping for a flicker of hope. "I need your assurance that you'll look into this, for Jake's sake, and for the truth." That simple demand changed everything, escalating the stakes as the uncharted paths of friendship, family, and conscience opened before them. What would this revelation mean for their intertwined lives? As silence enveloped them once again, Sarah realized the battle was only just beginning. How far was she willing to go for integrity, and would they both emerge whole from this?
It was then that Carol's phone buzzed, shattering the silence, an unexpected interruption that hinted at unfolding consequences. What awaited them now? The phone buzzed again, penetrating the thick atmosphere like a scale tipping amidst uncertainty. Carol's fingers flicked over the screen, and her expression morphed into something Sarah recognized all too well. Dread mingled with obligation. Sarah studied Carol's features, tracing the sharp outlines of anxiety flickering like a candle caught in the wind. "What do you need to do?" Sarah asked, though she could already feel the distance between them widening again. Carol hesitated before speaking, glancing back at Sarah as if gauging the potential fallout of her next words. "I need to see who it is," she replied quietly, and the words felt like a retreat. Sarah's heart sank at the unspoken implications. The world they had carved out for themselves now bore a threat that wrapped around them like sinister ivy. For a moment, Sarah's mind whirled with schemes and strategies. It felt as though the very foundation of her reality was shaking, and yet in that turmoil, she found a calm determination beginning to bloom. She was no longer just a mother advocating for her son. She was a fierce defender of truth. Perhaps this was the beginning of her own transformation, the moment when she would no longer allow others to dictate terms of her reality. Carol's eyes flickered over the phone, shadows tightening around her features. "Sarah, No excuses," Sarah interrupted, her voice firmer than she anticipated. Each syllable felt like an anchor, pulling her feet into solid ground. "If you want to genuinely tackle this, we must do it together. There can't be evasions anymore." Carol met her gaze, searching for something within Sarah's eyes. Perhaps it was strength, resolve, or the fierce glimmer of someone transformed by crisis. The silence hung between them again, thicker than air, each pulse urging forth either solidarity or rupture. "What if I don't want to know?" Carol's voice trembled, an honest admission that struck Sarah straight in the chest. "You have to know, for your own sake and for your family," Sarah urged, feeling the weight of her words settle like a stone in the pit of her stomach. "What you're facing won't disappear. It'll only fester." For a long moment, the weight of their shared history filled the room with an unsteady tension. It was as if the universe conspired to force them into a reckoning where alignment with the truth seemed inevitable. Would they both step off the ledge, holding hands together? Carol's phone buzzed once more, but this time she ignored it. Whatever urgency beckoned could wait. "All right," she finally said, her voice steadier. "But if we do this, we do it right." Sarah's heart raced, not in fear, but in exhilaration. She could view the pathway of integrity unfolding before her. It shimmered with possibilities, laden with challenges, but offering a sense of empowerment that electrified her. "Together," Sarah agreed, a newfound fire igniting her voice. "We'll look through everything, each specific Jake mentioned, every thread. We'll unravel it." As they stood there, a silent pact established between them, Sarah felt a thrilling spark of potential within herself. Deep within, she understood that this was about more than just Jake or Carol. It was about her evolving identity as a protector, as someone who would no longer remain passive when faced with injustice. What did this newfound resolve reveal about her, and what other hidden truths would unfold as they embarked on this perilous journey together? Just as Sarah grappled with the magnitude of her metamorphosis, they both heard the unmistakable thrust of footsteps approaching, the kind that signaled confrontation. Would they be prepared to face the unexpected together? As the footsteps grew closer, a palpable tension filled the air. It resonated deep within Sarah. Each heartbeat pulsed a reminder of her commitment, solidifying her resolve to confront whatever lay beyond the door. Uncertainty hung darkly around them, but within, she felt a flicker of courage, pushing back against her encroaching doubts.
Carol glanced toward the sound, worry etching her features, but Sarah stepped forward instinctively. She recognized this as a pivotal moment, not just for them, but for her own identity as a mother and a champion of truth. It was an opportunity to wrest control back from the shadows that had danced in the peripheries of her life for far too long. "Stay close," Sarah whispered firmly, her voice steadying both herself and Carol. The footfalls caused outside, and anxiety twisted into anticipation as they exchanged glances, both aware that this was a reckoning. The door swung open to reveal a familiar figure. Jake stood there, his expression a volatile mix of surprise and concern. His entrance was like a spotlight, suddenly illuminating the hidden darkness they had been wrestling with. Carol's breath caught as she tried to gauge his mood, but Sarah felt a swell of instinctive protection ignite in her chest. "Mom? What's going on?" Jake's question bore an innocence that belied the complexity swirling around them. He looked back and forth between the two women, unaware of the storm brewing within. "Jake," Sarah began, her voice steadying, carrying an authority she rarely wielded. "We need to talk about what you told us earlier, about your grandmother." She felt a magnetic pull, as though the very act of facing this conversation could unravel the tight knots of fear binding their family. Jake shifted his weight, uncertainty flickering across his face. "What do you mean?" he asked, confusion tightening around his brow.
Carol's hands trembled slightly, but Sarah placed her own firmly atop her friend's, grounding them both. "All those hints you dropped, it's time to be clear. We deserve to understand everything, not just the snippets." As the words spilled out, Sarah caught the glimmer of surprise in Jake's eyes, and in that moment, she realized he had never seen her as a force to be reckoned with. She had always been the caretaker, the listener, but now she was ready to actively shape the narrative, determine the truth. I didn't mean to cause trouble, Mom," Jake stuttered, uncertainty wrestling with guilt. "I thought it was just what I felt. It wasn't meant to hurt anyone." Yet Sarah could sense a deeper truth lurking just beneath the surface. "What you feel is valid, Jake, but keeping it hidden won't shield us from the fallout." Each time she pressed forward, each statement crystallized her transformation. Across the room, Carol met Sarah's gaze, a spark of understanding igniting between them. They were both standing taller, fortified by the strength of their newfound alliance. Sarah felt her ability to inspire confidence growing, first in Jake, then in herself. Beneath all the unexpected tensions lay a transformative truth, shifting the very foundation of their family dynamic. The need to confront the uncomfortable was becoming clearer now, urging her to ask questions that had long been avoided. "Tell me what you saw, Jake," Sarah commanded gently, her determination glimmering in her eyes. There had been an awakening within her, an unwavering desire not only to protect, but to confront the unspoken truths that had kept them bound in silence. As he hesitated, Sarah's heart beat wildly in anticipation. What revelations might erupt from this moment? Just then, the phone buzzed sharply again, its ominous tone cutting through the tension like a knife. Carol, eyes wide, reached for it instinctively. But Sarah, with a fierce spark ignited deep inside, understood this was the moment where fear would tremble before resolve. "No," she said, shaking her head firmly. "This is too important. We need to focus on this now." What lay hidden beneath Jake's hesitance? And would Sarah wield her newfound resolve to unearth the truths that would bind them all closer, or tear them apart once and for all? The silence in the room thickened, the weight of Jake's hesitation suspending time itself. Sarah's mind raced. Each second stretched her resolve like a taut wire. Every instinct within her screamed to stay present, to anchor her energy in this moment, and not let fear seep back in. They were standing at the precipice of something significant, a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. "Jake," Sarah urged, her voice a thread of calm woven through the tension. "You can tell us. Whatever it is, you're not alone." Each word was a reminder not just for him, but for herself as well. She was redefining her role, ripening into the voice of reason she had always hoped to be.
Jake's brow furrowed deeper, caught in the snare of his own thoughts. I thought it was a dream. It felt real, but it couldn't be, right?" His voice quivered, echoing the disbelief shadowing his mind. The urgency of the moment spurred Sarah forward, driving her to take a step closer to him. The dynamic between mother and son had always been familial, but lacked the depth of confrontation, a depth she was intent on reaching. And what was it? A feeling? Something you saw? His eyes darted, searching for clarity in the faces around him, But Sarah was no longer merely a passive listener. She was holding steady, declaring herself a trustworthy ally in this ordeal. I saw her, Mom. Grandma. She was looking right at me. But it wasn't just her. It was like she was trying to tell me something, warning me, Jake uttered, the words tumbling slowly but surely like stones rolling downhill. There was darkness around her. Something was wrong. Something was wrong, Sarah repeated, the weight of his revelation settling heavily on her. She felt her pulse quicken, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of action. This was where all her years of repression began to shimmer with new potential. By listening, they could uncover layers of truth that might otherwise remain buried. And what did it feel like, Jake? This warning? I felt afraid, he admitted, his voice sharpening with clarity despite his trembling. I've seen things I shouldn't, things happening when I'm with her. The honesty in his tone pricked at Sarah's heart, revealing the strands of dread binding their family. Jake, we have to face what this means, she pressed, pushing past the defensive walls of disbelief. This isn't just about your grandmother. It's about us, our family. We must confront any darkness together. The way Jake shifted, the flicker of vulnerability beneath the bravado, told her everything she needed to know. Her son was coming to terms with truths he had long suppressed. As Jake opened his mouth to speak again, the phone buzzed once more, this time more insistent, fracturing the fragile moment. Carol's eyes flickered towards it, expectation and fear warring within her, but Sarah's intentions were firm. No, she declared, her voice a determined beacon against the beckoning distraction. We need to finish this. Whatever is out there, it can wait. We have to focus on us. It was not merely survival instinct guiding Sarah, but a fierce determination to catalyze transformation in her life. She would no longer be the silent witness. She would illuminate the path for her son and friend alike through the murky waters of their truth. I'm ready to help find the answers, Sarah declared, a newfound resilience settling into her bones. Each word was a hammer driving nails into the walls that had kept her from marching forward. She felt bigger within herself, emboldened, a driving force rather than a passive entity.
Jake looked at her, and Sarah could see the trepidation melting away into a cautious hope. In that vulnerable exchange, she saw the potential for healing, for change, not just for them, but for herself. As if sensing their resolve, the phone went silent again, leaving them ensconced in an urgent quiet. Jake swallowed hard, the moment pregnant with possibilities, each unspoken word more powerful than the last. Then, with a tentative voice filled with defiance, he said, I think we need to confront Grandma. I want to know what she was trying to say. A shiver coursed through Sarah, not of fear, but excitement. The direction was clear. They were not merely facing the unknown, they were diving into it, willingly. What awaited them on the other side of this confrontation? Would they emerge united or fractured, as the past collided with their present? The urgency crackled in the air, as anticipation swelled. Uncertainty melded with newly forged hope. Would they gather the strength needed to light the shadows together, or would buried truths consume them? Only one way to find out. They had stepped onto the cusp of revelation. Jake's breath quickened, the gravity of his declaration hanging in the air like a heavy mist. Sarah sensed the dawning realization within him, a tentative recognition of the path they were about to tread. She moved to take Jake's hand, a gesture of solidarity. All right then, she began, determination crystallizing her tone. Let's start by recalling everything you remember about the dream. Every detail matters. As Jake struggled to articulate the jigsaw pieces of his vision, Sarah found herself immersed in a dual role of a supportive mother and an active participant in the unfolding drama. Her son's fear catalyzed her own passion for uncovering truths long held at bay. The boundaries of their relationship reshaped before her eyes. She was no longer just nurturing, but guiding him through an awakening. I was at Grandma's, Jake stammered as the memories poured forth. It was dark, and I saw her standing there, looking scared. But then shadows circled around her, and she pointed at something. I think she was trying to tell me something important. Jake's eyes bore into hers, seeking assurance that they were both navigating this unsettling landscape together. Sarah felt the pulling of the past, a lingering echo of her own childhood fears, and the historical silence around their family secrets. Maybe, Sarah ventured, swallowing hard against the unease that began to surface, maybe we can conduct a little investigation. What happened before you saw her, and what did she say? Glimmers of confidence ignited within her. She was moving from the sidelines into direct engagement. Each question stirred both anticipation and anxiety within her. If unfolding this mystery required confronting past traumas, she was ready to face them head on, not only for Jake, but for her own long-suppressed truths as well.
Taking a deep breath, Jake leaned back into the space, grounding himself. Mom, can we look at her things? Maybe there's something there, something I missed that could point us to what she wanted. Of course, Sarah replied, her mind already racing ahead. Each layer of her resistance peeled away, revealing a woman more capable and whole than she had felt in years. We'll figure this out together, and whatever we find, we'll face it as a family. A tinge of doubt fluttered in the recesses of her mind. Was she truly prepared to confront her mother-in-law's legacy, potentially unearthing emotions that could fracture their already tenuous family ties? But the dire need for understanding surged above the nagging fears. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah gently squeezed Jake's shoulder. Let's think this through. What do you want to achieve by confronting your grandmother? Is it closure, clarity, or something deeper? Jake paused. His face was a blend of uncertainty and raw vulnerability. The moment transformed their typical interactions. Instead of a monologue, this was dialogue, and together they were carving a path toward greater truth. I guess I just want to understand if it was a warning. If she was scared, should I be? The air thickened with tension as his question echoed in her mind. We'll find out what she was warning you about, and we'll keep each other safe. Her voice trembled with authority she had not known she possessed. There was a fierce drive igniting her resolve. Together, they were building a foundation for their transformation in ways beyond the confrontation itself. They were shedding past patterns of avoidance. Let's start after dinner. We both need to gather our strength first. As they prepared to leave the room, Carol remained rigid, an unresolved tension brimming between them. Though she sensed there was more to uncover, navigating this territory without triggers was rattling. Mom, are you sure this is a good idea? Jake's caution brought a momentary pause, even as Sarah felt the momentum of their commitment rising. Uncertainty wove a delicate thread between excitement and dread. Yet she had traded silence for engagement. Fear was now only a chapter in the story. The environment shifted in response to their decisions. This felt like the thunder before a storm, sudden clarity in the chaos. As they made their way to the table, Sarah cast a lingering glance back at the shadows of the room, a reminder that every opening also held the potential for darkness. Unbeknownst to them, the evening would reveal secrets that could shake their foundations, potentially transforming the very essence of their relationship. Would the confrontation simply deepen their wounds, or would it lead them to a profound reckoning? The fork in their journey had arrived, and the question remained, how fully were they prepared to confront the shadows of the past?
Dinner arrived with an almost suffocating tension. The dining room bathed in warm light that felt at odds with the storm brewing in their hearts. Sarah set the table with a heightened sense of awareness, her movements precise, almost ritualistic, as if she were trying to ground herself in the familiar while the unknown loomed ahead. Mom, Jake's voice broke through the silence, trembling in its steadiness. What if we find something that can't be explained? His question hung in the air, tangible and heavy, like the cutlery she clanked against the plates. Caught in that moment of potential confrontation, a complex knot of emotions wove through her. Should she reassure him with platitudes, or acknowledge the genuine fear that echoed within? Instead, she chose honesty. If we find something unexplainable, then we deal with it together. That's all we can do. Do you really think we're ready for tomorrow? Jake pressed, his eyes searching hers. The gravity of their upcoming revelation pulsated in the space between them. A crack formed in Sarah's confident facade as she considered whether her carefully constructed image of a resilient mother would hold against the unforeseen. The moments ticked by too swiftly, filled with the clatter of dishes and the muted exchanges of obligatory pleasantries from Carol. At the same time, a whirlwind brewed within Sarah, her thoughts dancing between the paths from which she had long tried to shield herself. Tomorrow's confrontation could very well shatter the fragile peace they had cultivated. As the meal progressed, an unspoken current thrummed between the three of them. Then, in a tidal shift of atmosphere, Jake cleared his throat, the intensity of his gaze suddenly burning into their mother and grandmother. I have to say something I remembered. His voice was steady, but the undertone of urgency was unmistakable. In the dream, Grandma was scared because of something that's happening now. I think it tied back to you, Mom. Sarah's heart raced. The words hung like daggers,
slicing through what remained of their familial veneer. "What do you mean?" "She was warning me about you, about the decisions you've made." Jake paused, searching for courage. "I think there are things you haven't told me or even confronted yourself about her, and those things are dangerous." The accusation reverberated through the room, and Sarah felt the heat rise in her cheeks. A rush of emotions surged within her. Guilt, fear, a fierce desire to protect what remained of their familial dynamic, and most potently, defensive anger. "Jake, you and your dreams can only reveal so much. You don't understand how complex this family history is. It's not that simple." "Mom, I dreamt about shadows. Grandma was surrounded by them. I can't help but feel that whatever hurt her is starting to come for you." Jake's frustration imbued his words with an urgency that was unnerving.
Behind her veneer of composure, Sarah's internal landscape shifted violently. There was truth in Jake's insistence. She had buried more than she cared to admit. The past echoed in shadows, and she had hoped to keep them at bay. But suddenly the monsters loomed large, and avoidance was no longer a safe option. "Let me explain what happened between Grandma and me," she muttered, the truth clawing its way forward. But could she pull back the layers of silence surrounding her family? Would the act of honesty threaten to unravel everything they had built? Jake's gaze tightened, wholly intent. "Please do, but make sure you're ready to face the truth as well, whatever it is." A storm brewed within her, and in that moment, she recognized the dawning of pivotal change. She had the choice to step beyond the shadow her mother-in-law cast over her, re-examine herself through that lens, and challenge the fears that paralyzed her. It was the threshold of transformation, yet the weight of revelation threatened to drown her spirit. "Tomorrow," she finally said, swallowing hard, the decision weighing on her tongue. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." There was no returning to the past with this truth unacknowledged. Jake's brave confrontation cracked open the door to a confrontation she had long avoided. Standing on the precipice of vulnerability, both mother and son prepared to cross into an uncertain territory, ready or not. As the remnants of dinner were collected, an unsettling thought sparked within Sarah. Was she prepared for the brutal honesty the dark shadows of her family legacy could expose? The evening had unveiled a treacherous truth. It would take their unyielding courage to navigate what lay ahead. As they stood to clear the table, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the real discovery awaited them in the attic, the place where memories and shadows intertwined. Would they emerge transformed, or would the past consume them in its relentless grip? The answer loomed as they looked ahead to the threshold of tomorrow. The morning arrived with haunting echoes of the previous night, an amalgam of anticipation and trepidation hanging in the air like the humidity before a storm. Sarah stood in the kitchen, every mundane task feeling imbued with a weighty significance. As water boiled for coffee, she observed her reflection in the window, dressed in comfortable layers, yet feeling utterly exposed. The woman staring back appeared both familiar and foreign, a disconcerting juxtaposition of mother and daughter, protector and vulnerable soul. Jake wandered in, still half asleep, his expression a medley of apprehension and determination. "Mom, are you ready?" His voice carried the gravity of their unspoken pact, and the question rippled in her chest, sparking an internal battle she had been postponing. "Ready, as I'll ever be," she murmured, more to himself than to him, the admission striking a chord that resonated with her tightly coiled anxiety. Preparation was a realm she understood, yet the prospect of exposing her raw truth both terrified and enlightened her. She stifled a sigh, stalling for time. Among the clutter of breakfast dishes and the clanging of a spoon against a ceramic bowl, Sarah had long since realized that this journey was not merely about uncovering family secrets. It was about reevaluating her own identity. A clawing sensation deep within implored her to confront the fractures of her past rather than merely the enigmas left by her mother-in-law. "Let's go to the attic first," she decided abruptly, making it a directive rather than an option. Jake nodded, sensing the urgency in her tone. Confrontation had turned into action, and as they ascended the narrow staircase leading to the attic, the air grew thicker, laden with centuries of silence. Once inside, a shaft of light pierced through a small square window,
illuminating dust particles swirling like lost memories. Boxes, old furniture, and stacks of faded photographs lay discarded, trapped in oblivion, a home to stories yet untold. Her heart raced as she took in the myriad of artifacts. Each item seemed an echo of the past, beckoning her to delve deeper. "Where do we begin?" Jake asked, his voice cloaked in curiosity, yet tinged with palpable anxiety. "Let's start with what we've avoided, my history with Grandma," Sarah suggested, the words spilling out, almost impulsively. The truth unleashed her courage. They rummaged through laden boxes, pulling out items steeped in nostalgia. An antique trunk caught her eye, and she felt an inexplicable urge to unearth its contents. As she flicked the latch open, a bittersweet wave washed over her. The sight of faded letters, each scrawled in her mother-in-law's elegant handwriting, flooded her with memories, resonating with the echo of their silent conflicts. "Mom, this is it!" Jake's voice broke through her reverie, and she looked up to see him holding a photo of a younger version of his grandmother, vibrant and full of life. "She looks happy here," he noted, a stark contrast to the shadows their conversations often summoned. "Yes," Sarah replied, the realization dawning upon her. That was before the fracture, before she became a shadow of herself. As they straightened the mess, Sarah understood the deeper implications of her revelations. Emotions she had long suppressed began to rear their heads: resentment, grief, remorse. It was not solely about revealing the past. It was about accepting every facet of her relationship with her mother-in-law, and by extension, herself. "What if this isn't just about her?" Jake ventured tentatively, locking eyes with her. "What if it's about how you became who you are?" Sarah felt the room spin around her. Clarity suddenly illuminated the labyrinth of her psyche. Unraveling the past encapsulated more than her grandmother's legacy. It was a necessary confrontation with her own fears, failures, and resilience.
Through the lens of their exploration, a profound realization settled in Sarah's bones. Each exposure of truth was the potential for healing. If she could peel back the layers of her history, maybe Jake could cultivate a different narrative, one unfettered by the shadows that had haunted their family for generations. "Are you ready, Mom?" he asked, his calm voice grounding her amidst the whirlwind of emotions swirling around. With a steadying breath, Sarah nodded, determination blooming in her chest. "Let's see what else we can discover." As they delved deeper into the attic, the air grew thick with possibility. The potential to rewrite their narrative loomed. But would it come at the cost of confronting deeper fears than she had anticipated? The discovery of truth lay ahead, but lurking behind every box was the lingering threat of the unknown. The attic was not just a vault of memories. It teetered on the edge of transformation, begging to reveal what had long been concealed. What awaited them in the recesses of that space would usher in a reckoning, a chance to dismantle the specters that had gripped their lives for far too long. Could they truly emerge unscathed, or would the past emerge with a vengeance? The attic felt heavy with the weight of years as Sarah and Jake sifted through relics of the past. Dust motes danced in the filtered light, a stark contrast to the tension bubbling within them. Each box they opened gripped at their heartstrings, unearthing neglected stories and buried emotions. "Here's something," Jake exclaimed, pulling out a delicate lace dress that had belonged to his grandmother. "Did you ever know she wore this?" He held it up, the fabric as frail as their familial connections. "I remember her mentioning it," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. It triggered shards of recollections, the laughter that would lilt through the house when Grandma would wear such dresses for special occasions, before the rifts began to widen. She always had high hopes for her family, but those hopes seemed swallowed by shadows now. The dynamic had transformed. They had stepped beyond simple remembrance into a deeper inquiry about legacy and identity. "Mom," Jake ventured hesitantly, "what happened with her that made things so difficult?" His question hung silently, resonating in the cramped space and reverberating through the buried fragments of Sarah's past. She knew this moment was pivotal, not just for her, but for him. Swallowing hard, Sarah recalled their family's history, the complexity behind her mother-in-law's facade of confidence. She struggled with her own failures, Sarah began, her voice growing steadier, and I think that need for perfection pushed her to become controlling. I was young, unsure of myself. I needed guidance,
but I felt suffocated by her expectations. Jake listened intently. And she never let go of that? Exactly.
The distance grew because I wasn't the daughter-in-law she wanted, Sarah acknowledged, shame weaving through her words. Instead of bridging our differences, we built walls. What if she was scared? Jake offered, a light dawning in his eyes as they climbed deeper into understanding. What if she felt she was losing you and didn't know how to express it? The notion reverberated painfully, yet beautifully. Sarah realized how misconceptions had distorted their reality, how fear had summoned avoidance instead of connection. Then it's up to us, isn't it? To reframe our truths? She spoke, her heart racing. If we're going to change the narrative, we have to learn to communicate, to confront honesty without fear. Their resolve solidifying, they unearthed more photographs, letters, and remnants of past memories, each an invitation to engage rather than evade. As they worked, a vision formed in Sarah's mind, one where transparency and honesty could dismantle the shadows that had lingered far too long. In a silent accord, they paused at a particularly worn box, its corners frayed from years of neglect. "Let's open this one together," Jake suggested. The act of unearthing the faded memories felt symbolic. With cautious hands, they opened the box to reveal a collection of letters bound together with a ribbon, the connection to their past enduring through ink and paper. As Sarah leafed through them, familiar handwriting came alive with each word. "These are letters from her to me," she whispered in disbelief. "I never read them." "What do they say?" Jake passed, curiosity piqued by the possibility of reconnection. "They're filled with apologies," Sarah read aloud, the realization dawning on her. Grandma was trying to bridge the gap, to show her vulnerability, but I was too caught up in my own fears to embrace it. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she recognized the years lost in silence. Here lay not just apologies, but an invitation to forge a new understanding. It was a moment of revelation. Sarah understood the significance of the truth she was embracing. "This is our opportunity," she said, wiping tears off her cheeks with new conviction. "We can confront the past, embrace our fears, and mend what has fractured." The connection between mother and son deepened, their shared resolve igniting a flame of renewed purpose. They were no longer mere caretakers of the past, but architects of their future, ready to dissolve the boundaries formed by misunderstanding. As they prepared to face Grandma, whatever darkness was lurking, they had forged tools to penetrate its essence, a commitment to seek understanding and compassion. "Together?" asked Jake, raising an eyebrow, a hint of youthful enthusiasm bubbling up. "Always," Sarah responded firmly, the quiet confidence radiating from her. As they descended the attic stairs, shadows swirled, but were met with the light of newfound unity.
No longer stifled by fear, they were poised to face that which had haunted them. Would they find clarity amid the uncertainties, or deeper truths they had been inadvertently avoiding? The moment trembled in balance, charged with potential, yet undefined. The hour of reckoning loomed near, but they stood together, ready. The shadows would not dictate who they were. With truth as their ally, they would rewrite their family's legacy. Whatever obstacles awaited them, they felt the strength of unearthing the past, preparing to embrace the future imbued with honesty, seamlessly binding together the broken threads of their lineage. Together, they would kindle the light of understanding and transform the contours of their family story forever. To all those on the verge of transformation, remember this: the courage to confront the dark is where the true power of light resides. And now, don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support.